Hello and welcome back to POS-X Labs. Today we'll be going over the process for changing the cutter head in an EVO impact printer. For this task you will need your EVO impact printer, a new cutter head, a number 1 Phillips screwdriver, a number 2 Phillips screwdriver, and a thin flathead screwdriver. The first thing you'll want to do is go ahead and unplug your printer and remove your printer paper and set it aside. I've already done that, so we'll just go ahead and go through the process for disassembling this printer and changing the cutter head. The first thing I'm going to want to do is open that up, and I'm going to take off this top cover. There are 4 screws holding it in place. They're small black screws, and we'll use our number 1 screwdriver to remove those screws, and we can slide it up and over the mechanism. We'll go ahead and back those out now. You may want to keep your screws separate because you're going to have different sized screws for different parts of this process. Now we can go ahead and slide our cover up and out and set that aside. We can go ahead and close down that mechanism, and then what we're going to do is there are 4 screws that hold the case onto the bottom of the printer itself, and we'll take our number 2 Phillips screwdriver and we'll insert them in these 4 holes, and we'll go ahead and remove those screws. Once those are removed, you're ready to remove the case. You're going to lift it up and over. But what you need to watch out for is the on and off button, which can obstruct this process. So that's what the flathead screwdriver is for. And you can insert it underneath the bottom, depress the on and off button. Don't get too much leverage in there because you don't want to break your case. And then just slowly work the case up and away from the base. Once you get that housing free, once you get the on and off button free from the housing, slide it up a little bit, and then you're going to actually have to remove the hinges of that front lid before you take the case completely off. And you can see right here is where the hinge is. There's 2 pegs. All you have to do is pull those pegs out a little bit, and then that front lid should come clear. So go ahead and pull that out a little bit, and then our front lid will come clear, and then we can set that aside. See these 2 pegs, they fit in the holes on the base of the unit. Now we can lift the rest of our case, set it aside. And now we can remove our cutter head. There's 2 small screws up underneath. You can see them, they're right up in there. You'll use your number 1 Phillips to remove those screws. But before we do that, we're going to go ahead and get rid of this tear bar so that we can get our hand in there without getting our knuckles all cut up. So you take your number 1 Phillips screwdriver, and we'll remove the 2 screws holding that tear bar down, and we'll set that tear bar aside. Once the tear bar is out of the way, we'll go ahead and remove those screws I alluded to earlier. Back those 2 screws out. unit should be able to come away free. You're going to need to slide it back and then up and out. Before we completely remove the unit, we'll want to disconnect it. You can see here, we back this small screw out. You don't have to take it all the way out, just back it out to where you can get to the plug. Pull the plug out of its bracket, disconnect the plug. And you may have a zip tie that holds this cable onto the frame. If you do, it's okay, you can go ahead and cut it. And then we'll remove that cable through the slot and we can remove our whole cutter head assembly. We can go ahead and set that aside and we'll put our new cutter head on. You're going to slide it down and then forward into these 4 slots. You have these hooked tabs on the bottom of the cutter head. Slide it down and then slide it forward and it locks into place. And then we'll go ahead and reattach those screws underneath. Before we plug it back in. And now that our new cutter head is installed, we'll go ahead and reattach those 2 cables. Thread it through the frame. The plugs only go together one way. They're shaped plugs. As I said, they only go together one way. So go ahead and put that back in its bracket. And then once that plug is back in its bracket, we can tighten that screw down to keep it in place. And like I said, if you want to if you have a small zip tie and you want to reattach it to the frame, you can, but it's not necessary that you do so. Now our cutter head is reattached. Go ahead and begin to reassemble the printer. At this time we're going to actually wait on putting the tear bar back on. Since it's off, it's just easier to go ahead and reassemble without the tear bar there. And it will be just as easy to put the tear bar on afterwards. So we'll slide the cover down over the top. Don't forget the on-off button, the power button. You have to get it over that, and before you put the cover all the way on, remember you're going to have to put that front lid on and reattach those pegs to the holes on the base so that that hinge works properly. So we'll slide that in. Make sure we line those up. It's a delicate process. Take your time. Get that lined up, and then once that's lined up, you can go ahead and push the cover all the way down. And then everything should work appropriately. Now we'll go ahead and reattach our screws that hold the cover onto the base using our number 2 Phillips screwdriver. And then once we're done there, we're going to put the rear cover back over the cutter head mechanism. So we'll go ahead and open that up. We'll slide that rear cover down over the cutter head and we'll reattach it using the 4 small black screws. Slide that down into place. Use our number 1 Phillips screwdriver. Go ahead and reattach that rear cover. And then last but not least, we're going to want to reattach our tear bar. So once we know everything's working correctly, we'll go ahead and put our tear bar back in. There are two small tabs, and there are two holes in the tear bar that fit over those tabs. Go ahead and put the tear bar in, and then reattach it using our two small screws and our number 1 Phillips screwdriver. And this should be the last part of our process. Once you've got everything reassembled, you can put your paper back in, plug the printer in, and it should be good to go. And there we go, mission accomplished. If you have any other questions or concerns, feel free to contact us. My name is Shane from POS-X Labs. POS-X, point of sale, simplified.